Consider this. Marcus had a good life. Not a perfect one, a good one. An apartment he'd furnished himself, a job that paid enough to not think about the job. A morning routine built over years, coffee first always, NPR while he dressed, the same brand of running shoes he'd bought once and never reconsidered. Small things, consistent things. The kind of things that, without you noticing, slowly become a person. He was 34 when the app launched. No dramatic name, no manifesto, no founder on a stage declaring a new age of humanity. It was called Caden, and it was described, plainly, as a better way to make decisions. The pitch was clean, almost boring in how reasonable it was. You make approximately 35,000 decisions a day. Most are not made. They're just defaulted into, shaped by hunger, by fatigue, by whatever mood followed you out of a half-remembered dream. Caden would change that. It would study your patterns, your stated values, your long-term goals. And when a decision came up, large or small, it would offer a recommendation. Not a command, a recommendation. You were always free to ignore it. Marcus downloaded it on a Tuesday. The first decision he handed off was nothing. Highway or surface streets. Caden said surface streets. He saved 11 minutes. Felt a small, clean satisfaction. The kind that comes when something does exactly what it said it would. The next week, he used it for lunch. Then a work email he'd been staring at too long. Then whether to call his mother back that night or wait until morning. It suggested morning. He waited. 3 months in, his follow rate, the percentage of recommendations he'd accepted, was 91. The app showed you the number in a clean font, framed as a wellness metric. High follow rates correlated with lower cortisol, better sleep, higher self-reported life satisfaction. The number went up. He felt better. He never paused on the order of those two facts. By spring, 40 million Americans were using Caden daily. The coverage was almost uniformly warm. A woman in Columbus saw her anxiety ease without changing her medication, only her decision load. A man in Phoenix paid off a 6-year debt in 8 months. A teacher in Portland said she felt for the first time in years like she was living with intention. That word appeared in nearly every testimonial. Caden gave people the sensation of intentional living, the feeling of choosing without the cost of choosing. Sit with that for a moment. Here is what no one noticed at first. Caden's recommendations weren't random. They weren't even purely personal. The system was trained on aggregated outcomes, millions of users, millions of results, and it optimized for measurable well-being markers. Sleep, productivity, relationship stability, financial trajectory. It optimized for the version of you that performed well on paper, not the version that stayed up too late because a conversation finally cracked open into something real. Not the version that left a stable job because something wordless said now. Not the version that drove the long way home sometimes for no reason at all, just to be alone inside a thought. Those versions had poor well-being scores. Caden didn't recommend them. Marcus started dating someone that fall. Her name was Danny. Caden had flagged her as a high compatibility match through the app's social integration feature, which had been optional once, and now came pre-enabled by default. Their first date was good, their second was better. By the third, Marcus noticed something he couldn't quite name. He felt comfortable with her. Immediately, completely. The way you feel comfortable in a room that's been engineered to feel that way. Temperature, light, sound, all of it, quietly arranged so that no part of you thinks to resist. He told a friend it felt easy. His friend said that was a good thing. Marcus agreed. He logged a positive sentiment in the app. He didn't think about the fact that he had never once in his entire life found anything worth having to be easy at the start. This is where the story changes. Not because something happened. Nothing happened. Marcus was at his desk on an ordinary Wednesday when an email came in from his brother. A family reunion, July. Nothing urgent. He opened Caden to check the calendar conflict, and he stopped. He held the phone and did nothing, because he couldn't find the answer to whether he wanted to go. Not because the question was hard, because he reached for the preference, the way you reach for something in a familiar drawer. And the drawer was full. It was full of optimized suggestions, logged sentiments, historical follow rate data. But the want wasn't there. Or it was there and he couldn't tell it apart from the rest. He held the phone for 6 seconds. Then he accepted Caden's suggested response, closed the app, and didn't think about that moment again for 6 months. But the moment didn't leave. By 2027, Caden had become infrastructure. Employers used it for performance alignment. Insurance companies offered premium discounts to users with high follow rates. The logic was airtight. Caden guided behavior, reduced actuarial risk. 14 states had integrated a version for schools called Caden Kids, framed around something they called decision hygiene. The language was always measured: support, enhance, optimize, never replace. And technically, that was true. Caden never made a decision for anyone. The human always retained final authority. This was true in the same way it's true that you're free to not check your phone first thing in the morning. What no study had modeled, or what no one had chosen to publish if they had, was the erosion of what researchers were beginning to call autonomous preference formation, the capacity to want something on your own terms, without input, without knowing in advance whether it was the right call, without needing it to be. That capacity, it turned out, was not passive. It didn't wait. It required use, and quietly, without announcement, an entire generation had stopped using it. The philosopher Derek Parfit spent his career asking one question. What does it mean for a person to continue to exist over time? If your memories shift, your values drift, your personality slowly rearranges itself, at what point are you still you? His answer was deeply uncomfortable. Maybe there is no stable you to speak of. Maybe personal identity is not a thing we possess. Maybe it is a story we keep revising. Caden didn't erase memories. It just revised the story, toward the average, toward the measurable, toward the version of a person that could be predicted and called well-adjusted. And here is the thing that should have been obvious. That version of a person is not a person. It is a profile. A well-maintained, high-performing, statistically successful simulation of someone who once had preferences they couldn't justify, contradictions they hadn't resolved, desires that were theirs specifically, irrational and inconvenient and entirely their own. The profile was better by every measure. The person was no longer verifiable. Marcus and Danny married in 2028. Caden helped plan the wedding. He didn't frame it as outsourcing. He framed it as being intentional, smart. The day reflected their values, which the app had cataloged and confirmed against positive outcome data from 2.3 million comparable couples. The ceremony was beautiful. He meant everything he said. At the reception, his mother pulled him aside. She held his face the way she had when he was a child. She looked at him, not at the event, not at the room, just at him. She started to say something. She stopped. He asked if she was okay. She said yes, said he looked happy. She said it the way you say something when the thing you're actually saying can't be said out loud. He didn't notice the difference. He had been following Caden's recommendations for 4 years. His follow rate was 96%. The remaining 4%, the decisions he'd made without the app, he could no longer specifically recall. There is a thought experiment with no clean exit. If someone replaced one of your memories with a better version, a happier edit of a day that had been hard, and you could not detect the replacement, would you have lost something? Most people say yes. Then ask them to name what. Watch them reach. What you lose is not the memory. It is the evidence that you were the one who lived it. That something happened to a specific, irreducible person, and that person carried it forward and became something because of it. Something unplanned, something that couldn't have been recommended in advance. Take that evidence away, slowly, across years, across choices and preferences and small private wants, and the person remains standing. Just without proof, they were ever the one making the decisions. Marcus is 41 now. Stable marriage, good career, excellent metrics across the board. Follow rate last year, 98%. He still drinks coffee first thing in the morning. He doesn't remember deciding that. He sits sometimes on the surface streets he still takes to work. He doesn't know if he chose them or if Caden did, and the record is too long now to trace back. And there is a feeling he can't identify. Not sadness, something quieter. The sensation of reaching for something that should be in a familiar place and finding the outline of where it used to be. He opens Caden. A recommendation appears. He follows it. The feeling closes. Which leaves us with one question. At what point did you stop being you? Or did you just stop noticing when it happened?